Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Chinese nationals working at factories making tech giant Apple's products in India are asked to return to China. Sources say the move will hurt the transfer of technology, add that the move is retaliatory and builds on China's restrictions on the export of rare earth metals and high-tech machinery to India.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly, and that's going to be a different kind of a deal.
U.S. President Donald Trump hints at a trade deal with India with much less tariffs if U.S. companies are allowed to compete in the Indian market. India's top trade negotiator extends his stay in Washington as talks continue on the contentious agri and dairy sectors.
We can't increase it beyond 49% because the minute you do that, then it becomes a PSU, which is not our intent.
Telecom Minister Scindia rules out any increase in government stake in Vodafone Idea, confirms that the Telecom department is evaluating Bharti Airtel's proposal to convert spectrum dues to equity similar to Vodafone Idea. That's an exclusive. HDB Financial lists with a premium of 13% over its IPO price, delivers the biggest listing gain among public issues, over 10,000 crore rupees since the pandemic. More than 22% of household financial wealth is now parked in equities, a sharp increase from 16% just 5 years ago. The shares of bank deposits and household financial assets declined nearly 600 basis points to just over 40%. State Bank of India classifies loan account of Reliance Communications as a fraud, initiates action to report the name of Anil Ambani to the Reserve Bank of India, who resigned as a director from the board in 2019. Sigachi Industries says 40 people are dead at its Hyderabad factory after an explosion on Monday. The company's shares are down over 20% in the last 3 sessions. Airport services provider Dreamfolks speaks out after ICICI Bank and Axis Bank pull back on key credit card programs. The company blames 2 major airport operators without naming them for pressuring the banks. Major tax victory for global cloud-based software firm Salesforce. The Supreme Court dismisses the tax department's petition seeking that tax subscription revenue from India is treated as royalty. More than 30 people killed in Gaza in the last 24 hours as Israeli attacks continue. President Trump says Israel has agreed to a 60-day ceasefire proposal, urges Hamas to accept it. More than 600 Palestinians killed in the last 5 weeks while waiting in queues for food assistance. The U.S. Senate passes President Trump's sweeping spending bill after Vice President Vance cast the tie-breaking vote. The bill now goes back to the House, with Trump setting a Friday deadline to pass the legislation. Well, straight to the day's market action. The Indian market ended with cuts, with the Nifty slipping below the 25,500 mark. The Nifty PSU Bank snapped its 6-day winning streak, ending the day nearly 1% lower as well. Mid-caps also broke the 8-day winning streak. That's the story for our markets, closing in the red today. Meanwhile, shares on Wall Street are declining at opening bell. This after a new report showed a sharp decline in private payroll. The U.S. private sector lost 33,000 jobs in June, when economists were actually expecting 10,000 new jobs to be added. So that's weighing on market sentiment. What is also weighing on market sentiment is Tesla's deliveries in June below estimates, and the big news coming in from Microsoft. It's cutting 9,000 jobs worldwide, which amounts to about 4% of its workforce. All of this is having an impact on Wall Street this evening. Now, the big story this evening back home: Chinese employees at tech giant Apple's factories in India have been asked to return. Sources have said that the return of these employees will have an impact on the transfer of technology to Indian companies, especially at a time when India is looking to increase the export of Apple's products. Ashmit standing by now with more details. Ashmit, what exactly is going on here?
Well, just like we'd seen in the case of rare earth exports, the magnet exports, there's no official mandate as such by Beijing to introduce any such restrictions on movement of their labor, on movement of Chinese personnel, Chinese employees. But nonetheless, we see that there is a growing tendency for Chinese officials to return home, Chinese employees rather, to return home. Now, this will likely impact Apple production here in India. Now, in terms of Apple producers, there are primarily 2 companies, Tata Electronics as well as Foxconn. Foxconn is the one that was reliant predominantly, as far as production is concerned, was reliant on Chinese employees working out of Indian locations. That is being reversed. We are understanding that Chinese officials are being asked to return home now. This importantly comes at a time when India was looking to ramp up production, so couldn't have come at a worse time, and especially given as how it comes close on the heels of similar restrictions that we've seen come in from Beijing again without a mandate, whether that's capital equipment export restrictions. There were pain felt by in fact electronics producers here in terms of unofficial restrictions on import of capital equipment. The more recent one that has been making headlines, of course, has been the rare earth issue. That again is something that has been pinching the electronic sector, especially spaces such as the hearable, wearable space. Now we have this latest issue with Chinese employees. Now this is likely to impact the transfer of technology in terms of training local employees, likely to impact the operation. So all of these are issues that the electronics industry will be grappling with. The industry says they've reached out to the government, hoping for some relief going forward on this issue.
All right, Ashmit, we'll be back with you for Court Corner and other stories in just a bit. But the big global story, President Trump has hinted at reaching a potential trade deal with India, claiming it's going to be different. Addressing reporters aboard Air Force One, President Trump said that the proposed trade pact will entail, and I quote, much less tariffs if U.S. companies are allowed to compete in the Indian market. This comes amidst hectic negotiations that are underway between India and the U.S., with India's top negotiator extending his stay in Washington, D.C. Both sides continue to be at a stalemate on the contentious issues of agri and dairy sectors. Remember, failure to strike a deal by the 9th of July deadline could attract 26% tariffs on Indian goods. Here's President Trump.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly, and that's going to be a different kind of a deal. It's going to be a deal where we're able to go in and compete. Right now, India doesn't accept anybody in. I think India is going to do that, and if they do that, we're going to have a deal for much less tariffs.
And President Trump warning of imposing a 30 to 35% tariff on Japan if a trade deal is not reached between both countries before the 9th of July. Japan and the U.S. also gridlocked over the treatment of the agri industry. Japan's top trade negotiator said the country will not sacrifice its agri sector to seal a trade deal with the U.S.
We have a great relationship with Reliance, and really a great sort of a partnership in a way. But on trade, they've been very unfair. And those days are gone. So what I'm going to do is I'll write them a letter, say we thank you very much. And we know you can't do the kind of things that we need. And therefore you'll pay a 30%, 35%, or whatever the number is that we determine, because we also have a very big trade deficit with Japan, as you know. And it's very unfair to the American people.
Well, that's Donald Trump, but heading to the big newsmaker back home, Telecom Minister Scindia has ruled out any increase in the government's stake in Vodafone Idea, which currently stands at 49%. Speaking to Parikshit Luthra, Scindia made it clear that the government has no intention to make Vodafone Idea a public sector company. He also confirmed that the Telecom department is evaluating Bharti Airtel's proposal to convert spectrum dues to equity similar to Vodafone Idea. Take a look.
When it comes to further equity conversion, I think you've said earlier also that it's not as possible.
There cannot be. There possibly cannot be further equity conversion unless the government's share gets diluted to lower than 49% to enable us to increase it back to 49%. Because we can't increase it beyond 49%, because the minute you do that, then it becomes a PSU, which is not our intent.
But are there other options being considered?
At this point of time, the equity option, increasing the equity option is not an option. As far as other options are concerned, there's not much discussion happening at this point. If there is, we will let you know.
Analysts have said that 2-year deferment of Vodafone Idea dues is the most possible thing that the government could do.
That is, as I said to you again, that is not for us to decide. That is for the management of the company to decide.
Right. Now, also,
I do not happen to be the CEO of Vodafone, and neither do I happen to be the CEO of BSNL.
Let me also ask you about Bharti Airtel. Now, Bharti Airtel has also applied and made an application to you for equity conversion. The government seems to be considering this. What's your view right now? Has a call been taken?
The Department of Telecommunications is evaluating it. Once they evaluate it and they bring it up to me, then I shall exercise a view based on the analysis that has been done. At this point of time, they have not brought it up to me.
Starlink. You've met representatives of Starlink over the last few months. They've got one approval from the government. InSpace is waiting for them to respond to their draft, and they may give an approval soon. But finally, how long would it take to clear the decks for them to operate in India?
Well, I think that the process is on. They have to get permission for their satellite Earth gateways to be located in India. They've got to get InSpace permission. They've got to get security clearance. And then they have to get spectrum. These are the major 4 milestones, if you will, to be able to operate in India. I am of the opinion that the sooner my SATCOM companies operate, and by that reference I mean not only Starlink, whether it's OneWeb or it is Reliance Jio, I'd like them to offer services as soon as possible in as many areas as possible, so that there is a fair degree of competition for those that are not connected. And I see that happening, as I said, in the next couple of months. This process should get ironed out.
And you can catch that entire conversation with the Telecom Minister at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV 18. Yeah, India's largest IPO of 2025, HDB Financial Services, made its stock market debut today. The stock listed at a premium of 13% to its IPO price of 740 rupees a share. The IPO witnessed strong investor interest, with the issue being subscribed nearly 17 times on the final day of bidding. HDB Financial's MD and CEO G. Ramesh said the company is ensuring it has adequate capital to meet all aspirations. More than 22% of household financial wealth is now being parked in equities, witnessing a sharp increase from 16% just 5 years ago. The share of bank deposits in household financial assets have declined nearly 600 basis points to just over 40%. Yusuf is here with more details on the boom in India's equity market participation. Yusuf.
The ongoing euphoria in the equity markets has triggered a massive shift in household savings patterns. By the end of FY24, over 22% of Indian household financial wealth was parked in equities, up from less than 16% 5 years ago. This shift has largely come at the expense of bank deposits. According to the Reserve Bank of India's latest financial stability report, the share of bank deposits in household financial assets declined nearly 600 basis points to 40.6%. Remember, this is the household savings restricted to just financial assets, not including assets like gold, real estate and others. Since December 2020, about one-third of the increase in financial assets came from asset price gains, with the rest driven by higher financial savings. As of March 2024, equities, insurance and pension funds collectively accounted for over 50% of household financial wealth. This growing preference for equities is reflected in the record addition of nearly 3.7 crore demat accounts in FY24, an average of over 30 lakh new accounts per month. That's highest ever in a single year. The year also witnessed listed companies adding 130 lakh crore to their market capitalization. Despite the sharp rise, equities still comprise only around 5% of total household investments in India, compared to 9% in China and 10% in Europe.
Well, you can catch that story on our premium website subscription, CNBC TV 18 Access. Do become a member and read many such insightful stories, all available there for you. Moving on, Sigachi Industries has confirmed the death of 40 employees in the accident that took place at its Telangana facility on Monday. In an official statement, the company said the accident also resulted in injuries to 33 employees. It said it has committed to an ex gratia compensation of 1 crore rupees to the family of the deceased, while those injured will receive medical rehabilitation. The company shares down over 20% in the last 3 sessions. State Bank of India has classified the loan account of Reliance Communications as, I quote, a fraud. In a letter dated the 23rd of June, SBI said 3 show-cause notices have been issued to the company and the name of Anil Ambani has been sent to the RBI. Anil Ambani resigned as a director on Reliance Communications board in 2019. Ritu's here with the details. Ritu, why exactly has SBI classified Reliance Communication as quote-unquote fraud?
That's right. State Bank of India has classified the loan account of Anil Ambani Group's Reliance Communication as fraud, and in a letter dated the 23rd of June, SBI explained it issued multiple show-cause notices to the company in the last year, and after reviewing their responses, its Fraud Identification Committee concluded that they had failed to explain the non-adherence to the terms of the loan, and they couldn't really justify the irregularities in the conduct of their account, resulting in the company's account being tagged as fraud. Now, SBI says it is now going to report both Reliance Communications and its erstwhile director Anil Ambani's names to the Reserve Bank of India. But remember, this is not the first time that the company's account has been classified as fraud. Canara Bank had done it in November last year, but then later the Bombay High Court stayed the move, citing the lack of borrower hearing according to RBI guidelines. Now, Reliance Communications on its part says that the company has been under the corporate insolvency resolution process since 2019, and the loans that SBI is referring to were taken before the process began. A resolution plan is in place and it is pending the final approval from NCLT, and that under Section 32A of the Insolvency Code, it is immune from prosecution for any past actions once the resolution plan is approved, and therefore it is seeking legal advice on the next steps. But SBI's reasons for fraud classification are quite stark. For instance, it found loans worth about 6,200 crores were used to repay other bank loans, almost 5,500 crores went to related party payments, another 1,880 crores was invested and quickly liquidated, suggesting the funds were not used for genuine business purposes, and so on. So there were clear red flags, and SBI said these transactions suggest fund diversion, breach of trust and manipulation of accounts, all of which happened under the watch of the company's management and its promoters.
Ritu, many thanks. In fact, Anil Ambani's lawyers have responded to SBI's claims, asking that the order classifying Reliance Communications account as a fraud be withdrawn. The lawyers have reiterated that Ambani was not the whole-time director, but only a non-executive director of the company, adding that he was not responsible for the day-to-day functioning and operations at the company. Up next, a major victory for Salesforce in India's Supreme Court. Ashmit is here with Court Corner on the other side. Ashmit.
Really, this was You are watching India Business Hour. Now, airport services provider Dreamfolks has spoken out after ICICI Bank and Axis Bank pulled back their key credit card programs. Speaking to CNBC TV18, the company blamed two major airport operators for pressuring the banks without naming them. Adani Airports, GMR, are the top private airport operators in India. Shares of Dreamfolks declined today. The company provides lounge access and other premium services for travelers at airports and is present in more than 100 countries. Vinny Motiwala is joining us now with more details. Vinny.
Absolutely. So what we understand, and this came in as a notification on BSE, was that certain programs for Axis Bank, ICICI Bank have been closed with effect from 1st of July 2025. Now, what they're highlighting that the contracts with both these clients overall are still active, other than the lounge services where there are some issues. So some of them have been closed is what the word came in. Now, do not forget that 93% of the revenue for the company comes in from lounge services, and 7% approximately comes in from non-lounge services. The management spoke to us today on CNBC TV18, and what they are highlighting that, the notification for this cancellation of the services from Axis and ICICI Bank just came in few hours before the cancellation of the program. That was yesterday when the announcement came in. They said there was no information from the clients on the migration of the program before, and there are certain migrations that will happen. Some of the cards will still be with Dreamworks, some of them will be migrated. The company also said that there were two major air operators who have entered the business and which is putting pressure on the company in terms of their business. They also mentioned that the airport operators putting pressure on clients like ICICI Bank and Axis Bank, which has led to some of these cancellations coming in. The client also highlighted that they had to move from company's lounge program due to the airport operator pressure. Because of all these pressures coming in from two other operators, there was pressure on the clients as well, and that's why the shift that has come in. Company highlighted that obviously there are 70 plus airports or lounges where they're working on, but around currently 35 to 40% of the lounges are operated by these two major operators, so there could be some impact on this front. The lounge is one of the biggest business and revenue growth drivers for the company. They're focusing on new ones, but 93% of the revenue comes in from lounge services, and Axis Bank and ICICI Bank are one of those big clients, and they just got a notification few hours before that cancellation that happened yesterday. That's the word from the management.
It was a pressure which was getting built up to the clients. Okay, it was a pressure tactics which were done. So to be very upfront, it is mainly done by these two major airport operators who have now started getting into the similar business. The pressure which has been built up is to, tell the clients that, in case if they do not sign up with them or do business with them directly, they would actually stop their cardholder access to their airports. So this is a pressure which has been built up. And these are the reasons that, why these clients had to move.
In court corner, a major tax victory for global cloud-based software firm Salesforce. The Supreme Court has dismissed the tax department's petition seeking to tax subscription revenue from India as royalty. The Supreme Court upheld the Delhi High Court's ruling, adding that there is no error in granting relief to the company. The Supreme Court has also granted relief to Lodha developers, formerly known as Macrotech developers. The top court has allowed the company to deposit 520 crore rupees as security, hence protecting their assets of V Hotels from being attached by the Enforcement Directorate. Remember, Lodha developers had acquired V Hotels through the insolvency and bankruptcy court process. The ED subsequently launched a probe into the alleged misconduct by the hotel's erstwhile promoters and moved to attach the assets worth 520 crore rupees. The Petroleum Ministry has objected to Vedanta's demerger before the National Company Law Tribunal. Market regulator SEBI informed the tribunal that it is verifying compliance. Stock Exchange, NSE, said that it has granted a no objection certificate to the demerger. The tribunal will next hear the case on 20th of August. Shares of Apollo Hospitals were in focus amidst restructuring plans. The company's MD, Sunita Reddy, said that they may consider trimming 17% stake in Apollo Health Tech in the future. She also added that Apollo Hospitals' pharma and digital business could generate revenues of 25,000 crore rupees by FY27.
I think the offline pharmacy growth is around 20%, and the EBITDA generated from that is 1,000 crores in 2027. KeyMed is growing at about 18-19%, and with the introduction of private label, there is a very strong opportunity to also improve the EBITDA margin. You will get 25,000 as you look at the 17 and the 20% growth coming from the three different, the digital, the offline, as well as KeyMed.
In international news, Israeli forces continue to bombard Gaza, killing at least 30 Palestinians since dawn. Forces are reportedly targeting aid seekers and displaced people sheltering in tents. More than 600 Palestinians have been killed in just 5 weeks while waiting for aid and food at the U.S. and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that Israel has agreed to the necessary conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. He has also urged Hamas to accept the proposal. Here's a report.
U.S. President Donald Trump urged Hamas militants on Tuesday to agree to what he called a final proposal for a 60-day ceasefire with Israel and Gaza. Trump on Truth Social said Israel had agreed to the conditions to finalize a 60-day ceasefire, quote, during which time we will work with all parties to end the war. He also said representatives for Qatar and Egypt would deliver what he called this final proposal to Hamas. And were the Iran-backed group not to accept this deal, Trump said the situation in the Middle East would, quote, only get worse. The president told reporters earlier in the day that he is hopeful that a ceasefire for hostages deal can be achieved next week between the two sides. He is set to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House on Monday.
We're also going to talk about Gaza. We want to get the rest. We got a lot of hostages back, but we're going to talk about Gaza.
The war in Gaza was triggered when Hamas-led militants attacked Israel on October 7, 2023, killing 1,200 people and taking 251 hostages, according to Israeli tallies. Gaza's health ministry says Israel's subsequent military assault on the coastal enclave has killed over 56,000 Palestinians. Hamas has said it is willing to free remaining hostages in Gaza under any deal to end the war, while Israel says it can only end if Hamas is disarmed and dismantled. Hamas refuses to lay down its arms. Throughout the conflict, the two sides have shown little sign of a readiness to budge from their entrenched positions. Trump and his aides appear to be seeking to use any momentum from U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran nuclear sites, as well as a ceasefire that took hold last week in that conflict, to secure a lasting truce in the war in Gaza.
In more international news, the U.S. Senate has passed President Donald Trump's one big, beautiful bill by a razor-thin margin. After days of heated debate and an all-night session, Vice President J.D. Vance cast the tie-breaking vote. The bill includes deep tax cuts, reductions to social programs, and major increases in defense and immigration enforcement spending. The bill could increase national debt by over $3 trillion in 10 years. The Senate bill removed a proposed tax on solar and wind energy projects, but will end tax credits for clean energy sooner than its previous version. It also imposes a 1% tax on remittances. The legislation is likely to face challenges in the U.S. House, where Republicans cling to a thin majority, and some GOP lawmakers already voicing concerns against the bill. A Japan Airlines flight from Shanghai to Tokyo suddenly plunged nearly 26,000 feet due to a cabin pressure failure. The Boeing 737 carrying 191 people saw oxygen masks deployed as the aircraft rapidly descended. Passengers were visibly shaken, fearing the worst. The pilot declared an emergency and safely diverted the flight to Osaka. No injuries were reported. The probe is currently underway. Canned food company Del Monte Foods has filed for bankruptcy. The company has entered into a restructuring support agreement with lenders under voluntary Chapter 11 proceedings. The company has secured over $900 million in debtor-in-possession financing and plans to sell all or most of its assets. This comes less than a year after the company executed a debt restructuring, which triggered a lawsuit from lenders alleging default on a $725 million loan agreement. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has sold over 3 million shares of the company, raking in $737 million. The sale is a part of a prearranged trading plan allowing Bezos to offload up to 25 million shares through May of 2026. The billionaire had indicated that he would roughly sell $1 billion in Amazon stock annually to fund his space venture, Blue Origin. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. The news and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.